The boardroom felt like a cage, and Trevor Matthews wanted nothing more than to throw his phone through the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Instead, he powered through another acquisition meeting, his jaw tight as lawyers droned on about merger clauses and shareholder agreements. At 32, he had built Matthews Hospitality Group into a billion-dollar empire spanning luxury hotels across 3 continents. But lately, every victory felt hollow. Every success just another item checked off an endless list. "Mr. Matthews, we need your signature on page 47, his assistant reminded him gently. Trevor signed without reading, trusting his legal team had already vetted every word. The meeting finally ended 2 hours later, and he loosened his tie as he returned to his office. His reflection in the glass showed a man who looked successful on paper. Tailored suit, expensive watch, the kind of confidence that came from never hearing the word no. But his eyes looked tired, older than they should. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "When are you coming home to visit? Your father says you are working too hard." Home. The word felt foreign. He had not been back to any place that felt like home in years. His penthouse was just a place to sleep between business trips. His office was where he spent most of his waking hours. Even his weekend house in the Hamptons felt more like a hotel room than somewhere he belonged. "I need a break," he muttered to himself, scrolling through his calendar. Meetings packed every day for the next 3 months. But what was the point of being the boss if he could not clear his own schedule? 20 minutes later, he walked into his executive assistant's office. "Cancel everything for the next 2 weeks. Sarah looked up at him like he had grown a second head. "Everything? Everything. Tell them I am unavailable. Family emergency, personal time, I do not care what excuse you use." He loosened his tie further. "I am leaving the city." "Where are you going?" Trevor had no idea. He pulled up a map on his phone and scrolled until he found somewhere that looked sufficiently far from anything that mattered. A small dot in rural Vermont called Maple Falls. Population, 3,247. Perfect. Somewhere no one will find me. 3 days later, his Aston Martin looked ridiculously out of place on the main street of Maple Falls. Trevor had driven up in one long stretch, needing to put miles between himself and the life that was suffocating him. The town was exactly what he expected. A handful of shops, a diner, a general store, and more trees than people. His GPS had lost signal 20 minutes ago, and he was running on fumes. He pulled into the only gas station, a weathered building that looked like it had not been updated since the 1980s. As he filled his tank, he noticed people staring. A man in a flannel shirt actually tipped his hat. Trevor was not used to that kind of attention, or maybe he was just not used to anyone paying attention to him as a person rather than as a bank account. "Nice car," a voice said behind him. Trevor turned to see a woman about his age, maybe a year or 2 younger, with long auburn hair pulled into a ponytail and paint stains on her jeans. She carried 2 grocery bags and was studying his car with genuine interest, rather than the calculating look he usually got from women in the city. "Thanks," he said, suddenly aware of how overdressed he was in his designer jeans and leather jacket. "You lost?" she asked, shifting the bags. "We do not get many sports cars through here. Not lost. Just looking for somewhere to stay for a while." She considered this, her green eyes sharp and assessing. "The Maple Inn closed for renovations last month. Your best bet is the bed and breakfast on Willow Road. Mrs. Henderson runs it. Tell her Aria sent you and she will give you the good room." "Aria," he repeated. "Aria Lancaster." She smiled, and something in Trevor's chest tightened unexpectedly. "Welcome to Maple Falls, stranger. Try not to run anyone over with that fancy car of yours." She walked away before he could respond, and Trevor found himself watching her go, noticing the confident stride and the way she nodded to everyone she passed. People here clearly knew each other, trusted each other. It was so different from the anonymous crowds of Manhattan that he felt like he had stepped into another world. The bed and breakfast, turned out to be a charming Victorian house with a wraparound porch and window boxes full of late-season flowers. Mrs. Henderson was a round woman in her 60s who looked delighted to have a guest. "Aria called ahead," she said, leading him upstairs. "Said a city boy needed a soft place to land. She has a good heart, that girl. This is our best room. It has a view of the mountains." The room was nothing like his penthouse, but something about the handmade quilt and the way afternoon sunlight streamed through lace curtains made him feel more relaxed than he had in months. Trevor dropped his bag and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. No honking horns, no sirens. Just the sound of wind in the trees and birds singing. He slept for 14 hours straight. When he woke, it was morning and his stomach was growling. Mrs. Henderson directed him to the Morning Glory Diner, and Trevor walked the 3 blocks, enjoying the crisp autumn air and the crunch of leaves under his feet. People waved as he passed, and he found himself waving back, feeling foolish and charmed at the same time. The diner was busy, filled with locals chatting over coffee and plates of eggs and bacon. Trevor spotted Aria immediately, sitting at the counter with a sketchbook, her hair loose around her shoulders today. She wore an oversized sweater and had a pencil tucked behind her ear. He slid onto the stool next to her. "Is this seat taken?" She glanced up, surprise flickering across her face before she smiled. "City boy, you are still here. I figured you would have run back to wherever you came from by now." "Trevor," he corrected, "and I just got here. Give me at least a few days before I flee in terror." "What are you running from, Trevor?" She closed her sketchbook, giving him her full attention. The directness of the question caught him off guard. In the city, everyone danced around personal topics, hiding behind small talk and professional courtesy. "What makes you think I am running from something?" Nobody comes to Maple Falls by choice unless they are running from something or looking for something. She sipped her coffee. "Which is it?" "Maybe both." The waitress came over, an older woman with kind eyes who introduced herself as Dolly. Trevor ordered the special, which turned out to be the best blueberry pancakes he had ever eaten. As he ate, Aria told him about the town, pointing out characters in the diner like she was narrating a movie. "That is Harold. He runs the hardware store and swears he can fix anything with duct tape and prayer. The woman with the red hair is Principal Stevens from the elementary school. Those 2 guys arguing about fishing are the Miller brothers, and they have had the same argument every morning for 30 years. "What do you do?" Trevor asked, gesturing to her sketchbook. Aria hesitated, then opened it to show him watercolor studies of the mountains, the town square, a close-up of leaves. They were beautiful, full of life and color. "I paint. Well, I try to make a living painting. Mostly I work part-time at the general store and take commissions when I can get them." "These are incredible," Trevor said honestly. He had been to enough gallery openings to recognize real talent when he saw it. She flushed slightly. "Thanks. It is not exactly a lucrative career path, but it makes me happy. What about you?" "What do you do when you are not driving expensive cars through small towns?" Trevor could have lied. Part of him wanted to. But something about Aria's openness made him want to be honest, or at least partially honest. "I work in hospitality. Hotels, mostly. I needed a break from the office." "Hospitality?" She considered this. "So you know about good customer service and comfortable beds. That explains why you are staying at Mrs. Henderson's instead of trying to camp in the woods." They talked for over an hour, and Trevor could not remember the last time he had enjoyed a conversation so much. Aria was funny and sharp, with strong opinions about everything from local politics to the best hiking trails. She did not try to impress him or figure out what he could do for her. She just talked to him like he was a normal person, and Trevor realized how much he had missed feeling normal. When she finally had to leave for her shift at the general store, Trevor found himself disappointed. "Maybe I will see you around. It is a small town," Aria said, pulling on her jacket. "You will definitely see me around. Try the hiking trail behind the old church if you are looking for something to do. The fall colors are perfect right now." Trevor took her advice. He spent the afternoon hiking, his city's soft muscles protesting the climb, but the view from the top made it worthwhile. He could see the entire valley spread out below, a patchwork of gold and red trees with the town nestled in the center like something from a postcard. He took a photo, then put his phone away, just sitting with the silence, no emails, no meetings. No one needing him to make a decision or sign a document, just wind and trees and the distant call of a hawk. He could get used to this. Over the next few days, Trevor fell into an easy rhythm. Morning coffee at the diner, where he always managed to run into Aria. Long walks through town, where people started greeting him by name. Afternoons reading on Mrs. Henderson's porch or exploring the surrounding woods. Evenings at the local pub, where he learned to play darts and lost consistently to a retired teacher named Frank. Aria became a constant presence. She showed him her favorite spots around town: a hidden waterfall, a meadow where deer came to graze at dusk, an abandoned apple orchard where the trees still produced fruit. They talked about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up in Maple Falls, about losing her father when she was 16, about choosing to stay in her hometown even when art school opportunities called her to bigger cities. "I thought about leaving," she admitted one afternoon as they sat by the waterfall, their feet dangling over the edge of a flat rock. "Right after college, I had a chance to move to Boston, share a studio with some other artists, but my mom needed me here, and honestly, I needed this place. The city felt too big, too fast. I like knowing my neighbors. I like that when Mrs. Chen's hip was bothering her last month, half the town showed up with casseroles and offers to help with her garden." "You do not ever feel trapped?" Trevor asked. "You feel free in the city," Aria countered. Trevor did not have a good answer for that. He found himself telling her things he had not told anyone. About the pressure of running a billion-dollar company, about how every decision affected thousands of employees, about how he sometimes woke up in hotel rooms and forgot what city he was in. He did not tell her the exact scale of his success, but he hinted at the weight of responsibility he carried. "Maybe you need to figure out what success actually means to you," Aria said thoughtfully. "It sounds like you have been chasing other people's definitions for a long time." The observation hit harder than Trevor expected. His father had built a successful real estate business and expected his son to do the same, just bigger and better. Every acquisition, every expansion was partly about proving he could exceed those expectations. But what did he actually want? 2 weeks stretched into 3. Trevor kept telling himself he would leave soon, get back to reality, but every morning he found another reason to stay one more day. Sarah called less frequently, learning to handle crises without him. The company did not collapse. The world kept turning. And Trevor started to wonder if he had been as essential as he thought. The shift happened gradually. The way Aria's smile made his mornings brighter. The way his heart sped up when he spotted her walking down the street. The way he found himself thinking about her at odd moments, wondering what she was painting or if she would be at the diner. One evening, the town held a harvest festival in the square. String lights were hung between trees, and local musicians played folk songs on a makeshift stage. Aria found Trevor at the cider stand and pulled him toward the dancing. "I do not dance," he protested. "Everyone dances at the harvest festival," she insisted. "It is town law." She was wearing a green dress that matched her eyes, her hair curling loose around her shoulders, and Trevor would have agreed to anything she asked. The dance was simple, just a group circle where everyone held hands and moved to the music, but when Aria's fingers laced through his, Trevor felt something click into place. Later, they walked away from the crowd, finding a quiet spot under an old oak tree on the edge of the square. The music was distant now, just a pleasant background hum. "I am glad you stayed," Aria said softly. "When you first drove into town, I thought you would be gone in a day. I did too." Trevor looked at her, his heart pounding. "I am glad I stayed too." She met his eyes, and the air between them felt charged with possibility. Trevor reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His hand lingered on her cheek, and Aria leaned into the touch. "I should probably tell you something," Trevor said, his voice rough. "About who I am, what I actually do, Trevor." Aria put her hand over his. "I know you are not just some hospitality worker taking a long vacation. You drive a car worth more than my house, and your watch probably costs more than I make in a year. I am not stupid." "I did not think you were," Trevor swallowed hard. "I own Matthews Hospitality Group, hotels, resorts, the whole thing. I am here because I needed to get away from being that person for a while." Aria was quiet for a long moment, processing. "Are we talking like regional chain or something bigger, international? 53 properties across 12 countries. Last valuation put the company at about $3 billion. He watched her face carefully, waiting for her to change to see dollar signs instead of him. Instead, she laughed, soft and incredulous. "You are a billionaire hiding out in Maple Falls. That is actually kind of ridiculous. Are you angry I did not tell you sooner? Should I be?" Aria tilted her head. "You have been just Trevor for the past few weeks. Honestly, I have liked getting to know just Trevor. He is a good guy, even if he cannot throw darts to save his life." The relief that flooded through Trevor was overwhelming. "I have liked being just Trevor too." "More than I expected. So what happens now?" Aria asked quietly. "You go back to your empire and this was just a nice vacation." Trevor leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. "I do not want this to be just a vacation. I do not want to go back to the way things were. But I also do not know how to make this work. My life is in New York, your life is here." "Those sound like excuses," Aria whispered. "If you want something, you figure it out." "I want you," Trevor said, the words coming out before he could second-guess them. "I have wanted you since you told me not to run anyone over with my fancy car." Aria smiled, her eyes bright. "Then kiss me, city boy." Trevor did, his hand sliding into her hair as he pulled her close. She tasted like apple cider and cinnamon, and when she kissed him back, fierce and sure, Trevor felt something in his chest loosen. Something that had been tight and closed for years finally opened. They kissed under the oak tree while the festival continued in the distance, and Trevor knew with absolute certainty that his life had just changed completely. The next few weeks were a blur of stolen moments and long conversations about logistics and possibilities. Trevor had to return to New York, at least temporarily, to handle business he could not delegate. But he called Aria every night, their conversations stretching into the early morning hours as they shared their days and planned their future. "I have been thinking," Trevor said one night, lying in his penthouse bed and wishing he was back in Mrs. Henderson's guest room. "What if I moved the company headquarters? Or at least moved myself? I do not need to be in Manhattan. I can run the business from anywhere with good internet." "You would really leave the city?" Aria sounded skeptical. "Trevor, you have built your entire life there." "I built a company there. That is not the same as a life." Trevor stared at his ceiling, so different from the one in Vermont. "These past weeks in Maple Falls were the first time I have felt like I was living instead of just working. I want more of that. I want more of you. What if you get bored? Small towns are not exactly exciting. You are there. That is all the excitement I need." Aria was quiet for a moment. "You really mean that, do not you?" "Every word." "Then come back, come home." Trevor smiled. Home. He liked the sound of that. It took 2 months to arrange everything. Trevor promoted his chief operating officer to co-CEO, someone he trusted to handle the day-to-day operations while Trevor provided oversight remotely. He set up a home office system with video conferencing capabilities that rivaled most corporate boardrooms. He sold the penthouse and the Hamptons house, keeping only what mattered. When he drove back into Maple Falls 3 days before Christmas, snow was falling gently, coating the town in white. Aria was waiting on Mrs. Henderson's porch, bundled in a thick coat and scarf, and when Trevor got out of his car, she launched herself into his arms. "You came back," she said against his neck. "I promised I would." Trevor held her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and the cold winter air. "I am here to stay if you will have me." "There is one condition," Aria said, pulling back to look at him seriously. Trevor's heart sank. "What?" "You have to learn to actually throw darts. I cannot be seen with someone who loses to 70-year-old Frank every single time." Trevor laughed, relief and joy flooding through him. "Deal." Mrs. Henderson had saved the good room for him, but Trevor had other plans. "Actually, I was hoping you could recommend a real estate agent. I am looking to buy a house. Something with space for a home office and maybe an art studio." Mrs. Henderson's eyes went wide, then soft with understanding. "Well, there is the old Porter place on the edge of town. Big house, lots of light, beautiful views. It has been empty for a year, but the owners are motivated to sell." Trevor bought the house within a week, paying cash and shocking the local real estate agent into speechlessness. He and Aria spent January renovating, turning the largest room into a sun-drenched studio for her paintings, and setting up his office in the library. They painted walls, refinished floors, and argued good-naturedly about furniture placement. "You cannot put a desk there, it blocks the view," Aria said, hands on her hips. "The view is distracting. I need to actually work sometimes," Trevor countered. "Then turn your chair around." They compromised, as they learned to do about everything. Trevor's expensive taste merged with Aria's eclectic style, creating a home that felt uniquely theirs. He installed state-of-the-art kitchen appliances that Aria learned to use, teaching herself to cook from his mother's old recipes. She filled the house with plants and paintings, color and life bleeding into every corner. The town accepted Trevor gradually. He proved himself by showing up, by being present, by caring about the community. When the elementary school needed funding for a new art program, he donated anonymously until Aria figured it out and scolded him for trying to hide his generosity. He sponsored the summer festival and helped Harold fix the hardware store's ancient plumbing. He became just another resident of Maple Falls, albeit one who occasionally had to fly to New York for board meetings. Aria's art career flourished. Trevor connected her with gallery owners he knew, not as a favor but as a genuine introduction to talented artists who deserved recognition. Her first show in Boston sold out, and suddenly she had more commissions than she could handle. But she stayed in Maple Falls, painting the mountains and valleys she loved, creating beauty from the ordinary moments that made life worth living. Trevor found balance he never knew was possible. He still worked hard, still grew the company, but it no longer consumed him. He took weekends off. He learned to hike properly, investing in good boots and letting Aria drag him up increasingly challenging trails. He joined the volunteer fire department, mostly to be useful and partly because Aria said he looked good in the uniform. Who knew the billionaire CEO would end up fighting brush fires in Vermont? She teased one evening as he came home tired and smoke-smelling. "Who knew the small-town artist would change my entire life?" Trevor countered, pulling her close despite his grungy state. "I think you changed your own life," Aria said seriously. "You just needed to give yourself permission." On a perfect October evening, exactly 2 years after Trevor first drove into town, he took Aria back to the waterfall where they had talked about freedom and meaning. The leaves were turning gold and crimson, and the late afternoon sun painted everything in warm light. "You know what today is?" Trevor asked as they sat on their usual rock. "Anniversary of you getting lost in Vermont," Aria guessed. "Anniversary of me finding everything I did not know I was looking for." Trevor took a deep breath, his heart pounding harder than before any business meeting. "These past 2 years have been the best of my life. You have taught me what actually matters. You have shown me what home feels like, and I cannot imagine spending another day without knowing you will be there." He pulled out a small box and Aria's eyes went wide. "Aria Lancaster, will you marry me?" Aria was crying and laughing at the same time. "You are asking me to marry you at our waterfall. Is that a yes? You really think I would say no to the billionaire city boy who moved to my tiny town and learned to love it?" She cupped his face in her hands. Yes, Trevor Matthews, yes, I will marry you. The ring was a simple emerald surrounded by diamonds, green like her eyes and the Vermont mountains they both loved. It fit perfectly, and when Trevor kissed her, he tasted salt from her tears and felt something settle deep in his soul. This was right. This was home. They married in the spring in a ceremony at the old church overlooking the valley. The entire town came, filling the pews and spilling out onto the lawn. Trevor's parents flew in, initially skeptical about their son's dramatic life change but won over quickly by Aria's warmth and the obvious joy on Trevor's face. His business colleagues were confused, some concerned he had lost his mind, but Trevor did not care. He had found something more valuable than any acquisition or expansion. Aria wore a simple white dress with lace sleeves and wildflowers in her hair. Trevor wore his best suit and could not stop smiling. When they exchanged vows, promising to love each other through city glamour and small-town simplicity, through success and struggle, through everything life would bring, Trevor knew he meant every word more than he had ever meant anything in his life. "You may kiss your bride," the minister said, and Trevor did, dipping Aria slightly and making everyone laugh and cheer. The reception was held in the town square under the same oak tree where they had first kissed. Mrs. Henderson and Dolly from the diner had coordinated the catering, creating a feast from local ingredients and family recipes. The Miller brothers argued about who gave the better toast. Harold cried openly. Frank won at darts and dedicated his victory to the groom who finally learned to aim properly. Trevor danced with Aria under string lights as the sun set over the mountains, holding her close and thinking about how close he had come to missing all of this. If he had not been desperate enough to flee the city, if he had not stopped at that gas station, if Aria had not told him about Mrs. Henderson's bed and breakfast, his life would look completely different. "What are you thinking about?" Aria asked, her head on his shoulder. "How lucky I am," Trevor said honestly. "How you saved my life without even knowing it." "Pretty sure you saved your own life," Aria murmured. "I just gave you a reason to stay. You gave me everything." They moved in slow circles, surrounded by friends who had become family in a town that had become home. Trevor had built an empire, made billions of dollars, achieved every goal his younger self had set, but none of it compared to this moment. None of it mattered as much as the woman in his arms and the life they were building together. A year later, Aria announced she was pregnant. Trevor cried, overwhelming joy mixing with terror at the responsibility of raising a human being. But Aria just laughed and told him he had handled scarier things than a baby, which was probably true even if it did not feel that way. Their daughter was born on a snowy January morning. They named her Grace, and she had Aria's auburn hair and Trevor's dark eyes. Trevor held her in the hospital, overwhelmed by how something so small could contain so much love, so much possibility. Grace wrapped her tiny hand around his finger, and Trevor made a silent promise to be present, to be there, to never let work consume him the way it had before Maple Falls. He kept that promise. He coached Grace's soccer team when she was older, even though he knew nothing about soccer. He attended every school play and art show. He taught her to hike the trails he had fallen in love with, showing her the waterfall where he proposed to her mother. He told her stories about how he almost missed out on everything because he was too focused on things that did not actually matter. Matthews' hospitality group continued to thrive. Trevor proved you could build an empire and still show up for family dinner. His leadership style changed, prioritizing employee well-being and work-life balance, creating a company culture that valued people over profit margins. Ironically, the company performed better than ever. Happy employees meant better service, which meant satisfied guests and steady growth. Aria's art hung in galleries across the country, but her favorite pieces were the ones covering their home's walls, paintings of Grace playing in the meadow. Trevor chopping wood for the fireplace, the view from their bedroom window on snowy mornings. She captured the beauty of ordinary life, the sacred moments that made everything else worthwhile. On quiet evenings after Grace was asleep and the house was peaceful, Trevor and Aria would sit on their porch with glasses of wine, watching the sun set over the mountains. Trevor would think about his old life sometimes, the penthouses and board meetings and endless striving. It felt like something that happened to someone else. Any regrets? Aria asked one evening as if reading his mind. Trevor pulled her closer, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair and the pine-sharp air of the mountains. Not a single one. You. Only that I did not tell you to stay permanently that first day at the gas station. Aria smiled. Could have saved us some trouble. We needed the trouble, Trevor said. We needed to figure out this would work, that it was real. It is real, Aria confirmed, lacing her fingers through his. This is the realest thing I have ever known. Trevor kissed the top of her head, gratitude flooding through him. He had been so lost when he drove into Maple Falls, running from a life that looked perfect but felt empty. He had expected maybe a few days of peace, a chance to catch his breath before diving back into the chaos. Instead, he found Aria. He found home. He found himself. The clash between city ambition and small-town values could have torn them apart. Trevor could have dismissed Maple Falls as quaint but ultimately boring. Aria could have resented his wealth and the world it represented. But instead, they found ways to bridge the gap, to take the best of both worlds and create something entirely their own. Trevor brought resources and connections that helped the town thrive without losing its character. Aria brought perspective and groundedness that kept Trevor focused on what mattered. Together, they proved that success and simplicity did not have to be opposites, that you could build something meaningful without sacrificing everything else. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Grace called out from her bedroom window. "Daddy, can you tell me a story?" Trevor smiled and stood, extending his hand to Aria. "Come on, let me tell her about the city boy who got lost and found everything." They climbed the stairs together, moving through the house they had made into a home, toward the daughter who was their greatest creation. Trevor tucked Grace into bed while Aria sat in the rocking chair, and he began the story the way he always did. Once upon a time, there was a man who thought he had everything but actually had nothing at all. Then one day, he drove to a little town called Maple Falls. Grace listened with wide eyes, even though she had heard this story 100 times. It was her favorite, the tale of how her parents found each other. When Trevor got to the part about meeting Aria at the gas station, Grace always giggled. "And Mommy told you not to run anyone over," she prompted, knowing the lines by heart. "She did," Trevor confirmed, glancing at Aria with a smile. "Best advice I ever got." He finished the story, kissed Grace goodnight, and followed Aria back downstairs. The house settled into peaceful quiet, the kind of silence that felt full rather than empty. Trevor pulled Aria onto the couch and she curled against him, fitting perfectly like she always had. "I love our story," Aria murmured sleepily. "I love our life," Trevor replied, and meant it with every fiber of his being. The billionaire city boy and the small-town artist. On paper, they should never have worked. Their worlds were too different, their values too opposed, their lives heading in opposite directions. But love did not care about logic or likelihood. Love found a way. Trevor had thought the clash between who he was and who Aria was would be insurmountable. He had worried that one of them would have to change too much, sacrifice too much, lose too much of themselves to make the relationship work. Instead, the clash completed him. Aria's calm balanced his intensity. Her creativity inspired his business innovation. Her roots in community taught him the value of connection. She did not change who he was at his core. She just helped him become the best version of himself, the version he had always wanted to be but never knew how to find. And Trevor completed her too. His ambition pushed her art career forward. His resources gave her freedom to create without financial stress. His devotion showed her that love could be steady and sure, that she did not have to choose between her home and her dreams. They were better together. two halves creating a whole that was stronger and more beautiful than either could have been alone. Years would pass, bringing new challenges and joys. Grace would grow up and bring home a boyfriend Trevor would terrify with his protective father routine. Aria would have shows in Paris and Tokyo, gaining international recognition while always returning to Maple Falls. Trevor would eventually step back from day-to-day operations entirely, trusting the next generation to lead Matthews' hospitality group into the future. But through it all, they would have this: their home in the mountains, their love that had surprised them both, their life built from the clash of two different worlds. On the coffee table sat a photo from their wedding day, Trevor and Aria laughing under the oak tree with the whole town celebrating around them. Every time Trevor looked at it, he felt the same surge of gratitude and wonder, that he had been brave enough to leave, that he had been smart enough to stay, that he had been lucky enough to find the one person who made everything make sense. The billionaire city boy had indeed met his small-town girl, and in the beautiful clash of their differences, Trevor Matthews finally became complete,